There are two types of people in this economy: the ones who get slowly richer every year without working more hours, and the ones who work harder every year and still can't seem to get ahead. And the gap between them is not luck. It is not inheritance. It is not even intelligence. It is one thing: understanding scale. Most people spend their entire lives in a system that was never designed to make them wealthy. They trade hours for dollars. They get good at their job. They get a raise. They work more. They spend more. And at the end of 30 years, they have a career, but not wealth. The problem is not their effort. The problem is the model they are operating inside. Here is the brutal truth about trading time for money. Every human being on the planet has the same 24 hours. A doctor earning $500 an hour and a fast food worker earning $15 an hour are both running the same fundamental model. The only variable is the rate. And both of them hit the same ceiling. You cannot clone yourself. You cannot work more than 24 hours in a day. So the income potential of anyone who sells time is capped by biology. That is not a flaw in their character. It is a structural limit in the model. Now compare that to what is happening at the other end of the wealth spectrum. A software product gets built once and sold 1 million times. A YouTube video gets made once and watched 50 million times. A real estate portfolio generates rent while the owner sleeps. A brand earns licensing royalties on every unit sold globally without the founder lifting a finger. These are not secrets. They are just structures that scale. And most people never learn to build them because school teaches you to be an employee, not an owner. This is the first law of scale: leverage. There are 4 types of leverage that make wealth possible. Labor leverage. You build a team that works on your behalf. Capital leverage. Your money earns more money through investments. Code leverage. Software or automation works for you around the clock with zero marginal cost. And media leverage. Content, brand, or audience that reaches millions without requiring your presence. The wealthy do not just work hard. They stack leverage. Every asset they build either employs labor, deploys capital, runs code, or commands an audience, usually more than one at a time. The second law of scale is the difference between scalable and non-scalable work. Non-scalable work is any work where one more unit of output requires one more unit of your time. A consultation, a haircut, a therapy session, a client call. These are not bad. They fund your life. But they cannot make you wealthy alone. Scalable work is any work where one more unit of output costs you nothing or nearly nothing additional. Writing a book, recording a course, building a tool, creating a system. Scalable work is asymmetric. The effort is front-loaded, but the returns extend indefinitely. The wealthy shift their energy from non-scalable to scalable as fast as possible. The third law of scale is the difference between being an asset and owning assets. Most people are the asset. Their employer owns their output. Their time is the product. When they stop showing up, the income stops. The wealthy own assets that produce income, independent of their presence. A business, a portfolio, a piece of intellectual property, a rental, an equity stake. The question that separates the two groups is not how much do I earn, it is what do I own that earns. And the answer for most people for most of their lives is nothing, because they never ask the question. The fourth law of scale is distribution. Ideas, products, and services are nearly worthless without reach. The person with the best product does not win. The person with the best distribution wins. This is why small businesses with great products die, while mediocre products with massive marketing budgets dominate markets. It is why the most talented musicians are not the most successful ones. Distribution is leverage over leverage. A brand that reaches 10 million people can sell almost anything once they build the trust. A person with no distribution can build the greatest thing in the world and watch it go nowhere. Building distribution, an audience, a customer list, a reputation, a following, is one of the most valuable things any person can do in the current economy. The fifth law of scale is compounding, and most people dramatically underestimate it because its results are invisible for years and then suddenly overwhelming. Compound interest in money is well understood. But compounding applies to everything that matters. Skills compound. Every year you get better, your leverage and earning power increase non-linearly. Reputation compounds. Trust built over a decade opens doors that no amount of short-term effort can force open. Relationships compound. Every connection you make has connections of their own and so on, exponentially. Content compounds. A piece of content published today keeps working for months and years. The difference between someone who has been building compounding assets for 10 years and someone who has not is not 10 times. It is potentially 100 times or more. Compounding is patient. It rewards people who start early and stay consistent. It punishes people who wait. So why don't most people do this? Because every one of these laws requires front-loading. They require building before earning, investing before returns, creating before income. And the financial pressure most people live under makes front-loading nearly impossible when every dollar is already spoken for before it arrives. This is why the first step out of the time for money trap is not motivation or mindset. It is margin. Even a small amount of financial margin, spending less than you earn and protecting the difference, is the fuel that makes every other move possible. Without margin, you have no capacity to build. With margin, the laws of scale start working in your favor. Here is what this looks like in practice. You do not quit your job tomorrow. You use your job to create margin. You use that margin to build one scalable asset, a side income, a small portfolio, a piece of content that earns passively, a skill that commands leverage. You protect that asset and let it compound. You redirect earnings from the first asset into a second. Over time, the assets produce more than the job. Then the job becomes optional. This is not a fantasy. It is a sequence. And it takes years, not months. But every year you delay it, the compounding gap between you and people who started it widens. The people who get wildly rich are not smarter than you. They are not luckier than you in most cases. They understood earlier, or were taught earlier, that the laws of scale exist, that they apply to everyone equally, and that the only question is whether you are going to use them or ignore them. You now know they exist. That is the starting point. Subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want more content like this. Drop a comment below telling me what your first scalable asset is going to be. I read everyone. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor or tax professional. Nothing in this video should be considered financial advice or tax advice. Always consult a qualified professional before making any financial or tax decisions.